Hello, you beautiful people, and welcome back to the Oki Music YouTube channel. I just want to say that it's a pleasure to have you here, and I hope that you have a wonderful time. Today, we are going to be learning how to use the SP404SX linear wave sampler. Now, this is a really awesome piece of gear. I've had this one for about a year and a half now, and honestly, I have pulled it out every single opportunity that I can. There is no time where you can't really use this, and it really does incorporate itself into any different setup, which I find to be a super awesome part of this sampler. So just the basics in case you are brand new to having this device. You have your power DC input over here. The power on button right at the top over here is just a switch on and off. So I'll turn the device off and you turn it on and the SP404 logo pops up. Now, the big thing that I really like about this is that it allows you to have a line in. Basically means that you can input sound via the line in from a different device. Let's say you're doing a live mix, and you have a line out, which means you can output to speaker wire directly to studio monitors, which is what I'm doing currently. So I actually have my laptop hooked up to line in, so if I wanted to, I could play music right now and apply all the effects onto the sound and have it output directly to my studio monitors. But today we are going to be focusing a little bit more on using the samples that you can actually input into the sampler, either via recording them with a microphone. So you would just press external source mic and you can actually record sounds directly into the device, or you could use the SD card and import sounds into that. Now, there's a lot to this device, and there's no way that I could cover it in one video without it being like an hour long, and that wouldn't even be scratching the surface. But mainly today we're going to be focusing on performing with the device, which is what I mainly use it for. So I have a couple samples loaded into bank A over here, and just to let you know, you have a total of 10 banks, 2 banks per button. So bank A, and then if I double click on that button, it'll start flashing, and we know that it's on bank F. The same applies for B, and I click again and you access bank G. You could do this all the way around from A all the way till J. You have 12 pads over here, which effectively means you can have whatever 12 times 10 is of sounds, as long as you have an SD card that permits that much memory usage. Now, for all intents and purposes, I've loaded some stuff into the SP404, and if you want to learn how to do that, do let me know in the comments down below, just so I can gauge everyone's curiosity about the SP404SX and how much I should cover on it. But I'm definitely willing to make a lot more videos on this. I will literally do anything to use this. So I got a nice little synth here pulled up, as well as some background noises. I'll just show you that real quick. Some background noise, a bass line, a shaker, a drum loop, and some background percussion. So I've actually already organized this into sort of a nice little 2 columns over here, just so that I could easily press all of them should I want to sort of play the full track, let's call it, for the time being. But basically, we're going to be triggering in and out from these 6 different samples and then applying effects on to all of them. Now, before you start playing around with the samples and doing the effects, it's important to know that naturally, the SP404 from stock will only apply the effect onto your most recently pressed pad. Now, to get around this, all you need to do is press the remain button over here and just kind of press all the pads, and this will basically tell the SP404 that you're trying to apply the effects that you play, whether it be the filter, isolator, or DJFX looper, onto these 6 pads. So the first effect that we're going to talk about is the filter. There's a couple of different settings that you can apply with it, and each effect over here has different settings that you can change with these 3 knobs: Control 1, Control 2, Control 3. Specifically for the filter, the Control 1 is actually a cutoff. Control 2 is the resonance, which I personally would suggest to keep that all the way low at all times, unless you know what you're doing. But personally, I have not found a way to incorporate this into my live performances. And the third control is the drive level over here. Now, specifically the setting that I use when it comes to this filter is I'll put the cutoff all the way to about 15% of its effective use. So it starts over here. That, in my opinion, is about 15% of its 100% range. So I'll pop that over here, and the resonance we keep all the way low, and the drive we will keep all the way low. And as long as you don't really mess around with these too much, you should be able to switch in and out of those ranges regardless of what the controls are actually set to. I know that sounds a little bit confusing. There is a bit of a learning curve, obviously, to understanding the controls, and you will mess up at first, so I definitely suggest practicing. But basically, with the filter, we are effectively creating a high-pass filter, basically meaning we're going to be cutting off the high end, keeping it very, very low and muddy. It's going to be really, really awesome when we're using it in transition with the isolator and the looper, as well as some of the other effects here. So let's say I have this first synth sample playing. As soon as I trigger the filter, we're going to have a high pass filter. So you'll notice that the high end of that is gone and it's back. And as soon as we trigger the filter, it's gone again. Now, in my opinion, this is the knob, control number 1, that you would actually alter during your live performances. So for example, let's say your pad is playing, your filter is on. You can actually bring that high end back in with control 1 and then place it back over there. Now, do remember whatever setting you left this on. So let's say you played with control number 1, you brought the high end back up, and I switched over to the isolator, for example. Now, whatever setting you have left on the filter is going to apply again. So you'll notice that the high end will still be present if we go back to that filter, right? Because we left it over here. But if we leave it down here, where the high end is mostly cut off, and we switch over to the isolator, and we switch back, the high end gets cut out again. So do keep in mind that whatever setting you leave it at, or whatever preset you leave your effect at, it will go back to that unless you've changed it. So we got done with the filter. Let's move on to the isolator, which is another big part, in my opinion, when it comes to performing with the SP404. For this one, you have control over your low end, your mid range. Personally, what I do is I put control number 2, which would be around your mid range, to about 75% of its effective use, which would be almost horizontal. Control number 1, which is the low end, all the way down, and the drive over here, or the high end, would be all the way down as well. What we're doing with the isolator is effectively creating a low pass filter, basically meaning all the low end would be cut off. Now, this in transition with the filter create a really awesome sort of transitions, and it gets really playful, especially when you're timing it right with the beat. And you can get playful with that and kind of do as you wish. And once again, do keep in mind those settings will stay the same unless you actually messed with them while the isolator is turned on. Then when you go back to the isolator, it will be on those settings that you left it on. So do keep that in mind. We're going to move on to the DJFX looper, which in my opinion is the money for this device. It's definitely what creates that, what I would like to call that typical SP404 sound. It's really, really great, and that's the looper here. Basically, what it's going to do is going to take the last sound that played through the device before you turn on this looper, and it will create a stutter effect. It's really, really fun to use, and if you play with it correctly, I don't know what I'm saying, whatever. It's really fun to use this just because it has a very playful nature, and you could really create different patterns with it, and I'll show you how to use it right now. So control number 1 is going to actually be the speed of the stutter, while control number 2 will affect the pitch of the whole track. So anything that's affecting this can actually lower the pitch of the track with this. And control number 3 is the on and off button. So at around 50% of this knob's effective range, it will trigger the on for the looper, and you'll hear the stuttering effect. So without further ado, let's show you how it works. So we got the sample going over here. Control 1 is around 50%, 60% of the effective range. And when I trigger it, it will stutter. As I increase control number 1, which is the speed of the stutter, you'll notice that the stutter will increase in speed. Now it's important, don't leave this on, which can happen. So I would definitely suggest learning where that 50% line is, or at the very least, keep a continuous monitoring over when it turns on and off, because I have, at least in my personal performances, accidentally left it on and went on to other things by accident. So just be sure you turn that knob all the way down if you really can. So we do have still the ability to control the pitch, and that's another thing that's fun to play with. Just keep in mind that if you pitch everything down and decide to go on to a different effect during your performances, it will go back to the original pitch of the sample. So just make sure that you're working it in properly. Obviously, all of this stuff is dependent on how you choose to perform it. I'm not trying to tell you how to perform. I'm just giving you as much insight as I possibly can when it comes to working with all of these effects. And if you want to see how I do work with these effects most part, then you're more than welcome to check out my Instagram, which is in the link down below. I do post a lot of performances on the SP404SX. Like I said, I absolutely love using this thing. It's super, super fun. Anyways, let's move on. So now we have the MFX button over here. And this is definitely what you paid for, because you don't only have one, but you have 24 different effects that you can access with this one button. Now, during a live performance, it's going to be a little bit difficult to switch back and forth. You have the convenience of being able to press 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all the way up till 12. Which gets you to the 12th effect over here, but everything else after that, you're gonna need to use this control number 3 to filter through them. So I would definitely suggest making sure you know which effects you're going to be using before you start messing around with the MFX and all the large range of effects that it can offer, because if you go to the wrong one and accidentally hit like distortion or overdrive, you might potentially ruin your whole performance and do it again, whether it be a video or you're actually doing it live. So that's just something to keep in mind. And also, all of these effects, control 1, control 2, and control 3, control different things. So I would definitely suggest learning all that. I'm not going to cover every single one of these right now, with exception to number 1 on the MFX, which is reverb. All you're gonna do is, so let's play that sample, for example, and the MFX is on number 1. Control number 3 is going to increase the mix, basically, so how much reverb is actually applied onto that, and that's really the only time I'll use it. Occasionally I'll actually apply it onto the snare and then close it back on, so just for demonstration purposes. Anyways, so there's definitely a lot of different things that you could do in terms of performing with the SP404. Now, my camera is seriously running out of charge, so I am talking as fastly as I can to get through this. So I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know down in the comments below if you'd like me to cover a little bit more about the sampler. I would absolutely love to make more content about this. And if you haven't already, please make sure to like and subscribe, because that helps me out. Oh, fuck. Okay, well, my camera died again, but what I was really trying to say was, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I'm going to leave you guys with a performance that I did for my Instagram, just to show you the full level of performance that you could do with the SP404. And I'm not saying I'm the best or anything like that, but just here's a really good example of what you can do with this sampler once you've learned a little bit more about it. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.